Hello everyone, and thank you for attending our webinar series on COVID-19 vaccination in Southeast Asia. Today we will discuss vaccination in employment law in Bangladesh. My name is Marion Carles, and I am a senior legal advisor and head of DFDL's employment practice group. I will have the pleasure to host this series of webinars. For those who are not familiar with DFDL, we are a law firm based in Southeast Asia, and we specialize in emerging markets. We are present in 9 countries and employ over 150 advisors and more than 300 staff. We have a dedicated team dedicated to labor and employment across our various offices to ensure that our clients receive constant, seamless, and appropriate legal assistance when employment-related issues arise. In this webinar, we will provide lawful consideration for employers on COVID-19 vaccination in Bangladesh. Joining us today on the program are Shahwar Nizam and Tarannum Tasnim, who are both partners. Shahwar and Tarannum are joining us from their office in Bangladesh. Welcome to the program, Tarannum and Shahwar. How are you today?
Thank you, Marion. We are doing okay. Unfortunately, Bangladesh is under a lockdown, so we are both working from our respective homes. Because of COVID, since March, the numbers have been increasing. So for the last 3 to 4 weeks, we are the whole country is under lockdown.
Okay. So I think now we can start, and maybe before we actually move to the COVID-19 vaccination related question, can you maybe start and give us a little bit of background on Bangladesh employment laws?
Certainly, thank you. Bangladesh is an English common law derivative jurisdiction. Most of the laws and regulations and the legal system is based on English common law. So historically, for employment law, we have had specific statutes that covered employment in various ways. We've had laws dating back to the last century in the early 1920s and even before that. But what has happened is that in 2006, there was a statute that basically brought together or codified all of these older laws from the 1920s up to that time, and brought together the new labor law that we have now. It basically did not really change a lot of those things, a lot of the basic principles or premises, but it just streamlined all of the provisions in one statute. I mean, for example, previously you had statutes going back to 1920s about employment of women, employment of children, Workmen's Compensation Act, specific laws for dock workers, specific laws for drivers, specific laws for people working in factories, specific laws for that brought in women's right to have maternity leave and all of those things. So these were all spread all over the last century and a half. What the new labor law did was basically brought all of them together under one law. And the statute was not very detailed. It was very, its main purpose was to streamline all of these things and bring everything under one statute. And then eventually in 2015, we have a set of new labor rules, the subsidiary legislation, but that basically brought in a bit more elaboration, a bit more detail about the statute of 2006. So those are the basic laws that we have now for Bangladesh. And the basic premise has not changed, as I mentioned earlier. It's still based on worker, non-worker difference. So basically, people who are undertaking more menial labor type work, they are considered as workers. And people who are considered to have managerial or supervisory responsibilities, and in short form, the commonly known local term is hiring and firing responsibilities, they are considered as non-workers. However, despite this difference in the law, when we actually go to the labor court that is set up specifically under the labor laws to deal with labor matters, we often see that the labor courts are quite pro-employee in the sense that they try to make sure that the aggrieved person or the employees who come to the labor court for redress get a fair redress or compensation from the courts, and they're always looking out to help the employees. So that's just a general overview of the labor laws in Bangladesh.
Okay, thank you very much. This is actually very helpful, and I learned actually myself a lot of things. So maybe now we can, move to the core of our topic, and I would like to know a little bit more. So you mentioned a little bit, the situation. I mean, your situation in Bangladesh right now, but how do you describe, the current situation regarding, COVID-19 in Bangladesh, and has the government started implement, the vaccination campaign against COVID-19?
Yes, thank you very much, Marion. The COVID-19 situation has gone through a bit of ups and downs since 2020. Initially, in the early days, March, April 2020, we had the first few cases of COVID coming in, and eventually it grew into some alarming numbers in May, June, and the government imposed the first lockdown in May around that time in 2020. But by around October, November, things actually started improving in Bangladesh. The numbers came down to single digits, and it was really becoming a very good situation because everybody started feeling that things are getting back to normal. Offices, shops, everything started opening up. We started working, going back to the office. Everything was business as usual. We had travelers coming in, clients flying in from outside. Everything was going really well. Suddenly, since early March, there has been a spike in the number of cases in Bangladesh. And this time it was a lot worse than last time around, because this time we started seeing more fatalities and more sort of faster worsening situation, where within a week of people getting diagnosed of COVID, they were going to a point of no return, and it was affecting younger people. And very quickly it was identified as the South African variant that came in and started wreaking havoc in Bangladesh. So since late March, the number has risen to record levels. The number of daily deaths went beyond 90 plus. And in the worst situations, it was almost 100 a day across the country. And that resulted in the government taking very quick actions. But by that time, coincidentally, vaccination program had already started. Bangladesh had this arrangement for having the Oxford version of AstraZeneca vaccine. There was an agreement with the Serum Institute of India for purchase of 70 million vaccines. So the initial few rounds of shipments of vaccine came in, and from February, late January, early February, the vaccination program started in Bangladesh in 2021. After an initial couple of weeks of not very lukewarm reception, the public really started accepting this vaccination campaign because firstly, we saw a lot of the government officials, the frontline workers, and everybody, they were given the vaccine. And by the way, this is all free, free of charge. The government isn't charging anybody for any of this. And the government made sure that it was not going to the private sector. It will be all under a government-run program. And interestingly, it was all done through a mobile app. The government launched this app called Shurakha, which means well-being in Bangla. And this app started registering people for the vaccine. Initially, it was only for the frontline workers and the police force, the doctors, the armed forces, and and that category. But within a month or two, it was opened up to the public who were above 40. And anybody who was above 40 can go onto this app, go onto this website, use the national ID number, and register for the vaccine. And this turned out to be a very, very successful campaign because it was very specific. You could choose a vaccination center that is close to you. And these vaccination centers were rolled out across the country, not just in the major cities. So even in the local areas, in the rural areas, in the local administrative offices, there were these vaccination booths. So after the initial few days of a bit confusion, it really took off very well. And within a month's time, a large number of people were vaccinated. So by May, 3rd May, I think the number was about 5.8 million people received their first dose, and almost 2.9 million people received their second dose. So as you can see, within a very short time, a large number of people have been vaccinated. Unfortunately, this is coming to a halt because just last night there was news that the government is running out of the vaccine. Now, because we had an arrangement with India, and given what's happening in India domestically, they've stopped export of vaccines. So it's slightly uncertain as to what's going to happen for us for the remaining doses.
But of course, because India is, of course, prioritizing the vaccine for the people. Okay. I understand. Thank you very much. This is very helpful. Now maybe we can move on. One more specific questions, and the question actually we get a lot, and personally I get a lot, is okay, so now the vaccination campaign I started. So as an employer, can I require my employees to be vaccinated?
I will request my colleague Tarannum to please answer that question.
Thank you, Mr. Nizam. So the answer is no. Employers cannot mandatorily require the employees to get vaccinated, because the vaccination program is operated by the Bangladesh government, and only a selected group of people can get vaccinated. So, and vaccination is not actually available through private sources. So no, you cannot require your employees. So but it's an option for them. It's an option for them, but you cannot mandatorily require them.
And nothing in the law, suggests and impose employers to be part of the vaccination, right? It's really at the governmental level right now.
Exactly, because government has actually provided this as a privilege, okay? And it's not something obligation. They have given the options that the frontliners, like health workers, the journalists, the bankers, the police and government employees, who are the frontliners, they can get vaccines, and people over 40 years of age, they can only actually get vaccinated.
Thank you very much. So another question that is quite of interest to our clients is, how we deal with, the information related to vaccination from a data protection perspective, and especially, for those employers who you wish, to ask their employees to provide information as to whether they have been taken the vaccine or not. So, is an information concerning an employee's vaccination is considered as a health information or sensitive data under, Bangladesh law?
Actually, there is no law yet, but there is a draft rules which is known as the Protection of Information and Privacy Rules 2019, but it's still in draft stage. It's not published yet. So this law requires that, any health information will be considered as sensitive personal information, and you need the respective person's consent if you want to actually disclose this data. So though this rules is not yet in force, but we will advise that this vaccination related information of the employee should be considered as a sensitive personal information, and it should be protected.
And okay, based on the assumption that these information related to vaccination are considered to be sensitive data, is there any restrictions provided under the draft rules that apply to such information that the employer should be aware of?
The restriction is you need to actually take permission from the relevant employee. That can be through a letter or fax or email or any clearly written evidence. So
yeah, so in written form, right? To make sure that we, okay,
exactly.
Great. And so this was, the general, this was actually the rules applicable to sensitive data, but is there any specific requirements that will apply to the collecting, processing, and transferring of, such data?
As I told you that there is a draft rules, but it's not yet in force. So the draft rules actually provides you certain modalities for collecting the information. Like you have to let the employee know that what personal information is being collected and the purpose behind such collection, then to whom this data will be provided, and for how long this information will be actually maintained by the employer, and then rules for handling grievances or consumer complaints procedure. So there are certain actually things that the new draft rules require the employers to maintain while processing and transferring personal data.
And is there any specific schedule, for the issuance of the draft rules, or we don't know yet when, it's likely to be issued by the government?
Actually, it was going to be issued back in 2019, but then, last year the lockdown was declared, and after that, these government offices are open only for limited activities. So now we don't have any visibility actually when this will be published.
Okay. And finally, I mean, this is also a question that you need to get a lot, and I also anticipate that you will have even more when the vaccination campaign will gain even more people. But yeah, assuming that half of the population in Bangladesh is vaccinated, can employers then will be able to terminate employees who have refused to take the vaccine? Is it like a plausible termination grounds?
No, because you have a set of termination grounds provided in the labor law, and refuse to be vaccinated cannot be actually considered as the prescribed ground under the labor laws. So rather, it might be actually considered as a discrimination to the employee, because the law clearly says that you cannot discriminate on the ground of health condition or any other thing. So the employer actually cannot terminate an employee if he refuses to be vaccinated.
And I presume the same principle will apply to an employer who refuses to hire an applicant on the grounds that he or she has not been, vaccinated.
Yes, obviously. He cannot actually refuse to hire someone because the employee is not vaccinated.
Thank you very much. Another question that is quite interesting, because it mixed, different concept, is: can an employer require employees who cannot or will not agree to vaccination to refrain from coming to the workplace? And this is actually a very interesting question, because employees are free to take or not take the vaccine, but what about ensuring the health and safety of the other employees working at the same workplace? What is your view on this?
Actually,
I think, no, please, Tarannum, go ahead. I'll just supplement. I have something that I want to.
No, since there is no specific legal requirement or restrictions on this, so I don't think that an employer can impose anything like this. Okay, rather such action may be considered as a form of discrimination. Okay, that's what I think.
No, and also, I mean, the rationale is very clear that the vaccine is even now, it's not available to everybody. It's only available to those above 40. Okay, so you cannot actually make this a requirement, because those under 40 years of age are not even entitled to get the vaccines.
Exactly.
Marion, are you there?
I don't know what happened. I was frozen for a bit, but yeah, thank you very much. And I will now wrap up. So let me thank our speakers. For those who attended our webinar, if you have any questions regarding this webinar, please feel free to contact me and any speaker. You can find our contact information on our website at www.dfdl.com. I think there was another slide where you could also see our email contact. This session is recorded and will be available shortly on our website and social media. If you enjoy this program, I encourage you to connect you tomorrow at the same time for the Cambodia session, where our legal expert will discuss COVID-19 vaccination in Cambodia. So that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you again for your participation, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.